Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today in this event that's held by UN Women and NAMA Women Advancement. Thanks to our guest speaker, Nada Khorshid, for joining us. Good morning, Nada.
Good morning, Hanan.
I also want to address my colleagues, Hiba Al-Jardali and Dr. Maya Meti. Good morning, Hiba. Good morning, Maya.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. We're excited actually to attend this session. Thanks, Nada and Hanan.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Very good morning.
Today, we are going to be covering many aspects of how to become a leader as an entrepreneur. It's a very important subject. We were just speaking about it, Nada, Maya, and myself, talking about how different entrepreneurs join in within a startup. Some of them are more focused on the technical aspect, on the core of the product. And another one is visionary, speaking about what's next, what they want to do with the product, where they want to go with it. And it's very important to have a ship with a leadership going to a certain place, to a certain direction. And that's why we are here today to talk about different things that we are going to, for Nada to address, including decision-making, including how you approach your goals, and much more. If you could please change the slide, Nada. This is me, Hanan Khaldi. I'm an entrepreneurship consultant to the UN. I'm going to give the floor in a minute to our guest speaker, Nada, to introduce herself. In the other slide, you can see all of these handles. If you would like to tweet, share a post on Instagram, on LinkedIn, you're more than welcome to tag NAMA Women, UN Women, to tag our speaker, Nada, or myself. Within this program, we are working on stimulating equal opportunities for women entrepreneurs. And from there, we are building a directory where we are going to give more exposure for women-owned and women-led businesses so that they have a bigger share in public and private procurement. So you can connect here with market opportunities. You can list your company as long as there's a 51% male-owned and controlled, so you have to be a decision maker, and also more than 25% women-owned. If you have a local partner, of course, you have to be based in UAE with a license in here. So this is the link. Please have it. You can add your company in there. So this is the masterclass is a series of workshops where we are talking about different aspects that an entrepreneur needs, many trending topics. And in the coming workshop, which will take place on August 9, and we would like to see you all joining us, we're going to be talking about transforming your mindset and business model to survive and thrive post-COVID economy, with our guest speaker, Ramil Karmi, who will be chairman of AB New Normal. Thank you, Nada. So in here, we're going to take a quick poll so that we are going to talk about, you will see on the screen in front of you, just a first one. We want to know how knowledgeable are you about your leadership style and thinking strategies. If you could please add your answers, either no knowledge, could be poor, could be average, good, okay, we're getting good, more, average, more. Okay, that's why we're here to learn more about it, good, average, amazing, okay. It's also very interesting, Nada, right? Like what, from one person to another, what does it mean, thinking strategies?
Definitely, and I think that will be something interesting to hear from the participant before we start. What do they think thinking strategies are?
All right, and the second question is going to be, if you could please scroll, and it's in the sample, you can see what's more important in your belief for the success of your business. Is it time spent on managing the business or managing yourself? Where's the balance? So we can find this 50-50, okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to end the poll in here. Thank you. And from here if you could please slide. So Nada, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hanan. Thanks to you and Women UAE actually for hosting me, for Nama Women Advancement, and for the great UN Women team in UAE. Hanan, Hiba, Maya, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the great work that the team is doing for supporting women entrepreneurs. 20 years back or even more, when I started my journey, that kind of support was not available for entrepreneurs and definitely not for women. So it's a blessing that you have all of that support today. So my name is Nada Khurshid. I'm the founder and CEO of Lead for Impact. And Lead for Impact is a coaching and consulting organization that is based in California, USA. And what we do at Lead for Impact is that we model leaders and organizations that show, and when I say we model, it means we study, we analyze, we create models out of those leaders and organizations that show equal commitment to both high performance and purpose. And when I say purpose, it means serving your shareholders, serving your customers, plus serving your people, serving the community, and serving the planet. We model them, we bring the practices, the knowledge, the strategies, and we share with our clients through coaching, through advising, and through consulting. And before I started this journey, I was in the tech industry for more than 25 years. And part of that long journey was taking a company from seed till it became a regional player. And today also I'm an adjunct faculty member with Strathclyde University, with a business school, and I have the privilege of contributing to the learning journey of MBA students around entrepreneurship, around inclusive cultures, and around leadership. And with that, I think it's enough about me. Let's start talking about our topic. And what we're going to talk about today about first, what is really a thinking strategy, and why is it important to know what are our own default thinking strategies. And there are more than 50 thinking strategies. But what we will do today together, in each of the following areas, we're going to choose one thinking strategy, explore it. You would reflect on how does that play in your entrepreneurial journey and in your business. So we will talk about approach to goals and problems. We will explore thinking strategies in how you balance performance versus relationship, in how you take your decisions in your business, how you manage your environment, and how do you manage adversity. And before I start, what do you think is a thinking strategy? If anyone is interested in sharing that in the chat. And no clue is also acceptable as an answer.
So you can add your answer. What's, in your opinion, a thinking strategy here in the chat box? And me and Nada are going to read them out. In your opinion, what is it? The mental models we use to make decisions. What do you think?
Oh, that's quite accurate, actually.
Growth mindset.
It's one of the thinking strategies. And any more?
How we self-develop.
Part of it. That's very true. That's very true. We have a knowledgeable audience, Hanan.
Definitely. Frameworks to help structure thinking, positive solution, models reflecting our mission and vision with milestones to reach out decisions and goals. Nelly, that's a great answer.
That's a great answer. Yes, yes.
So a big picture and planning.
All of that adds actually, and give us examples of thinking strategy. So and bear with me, and I will give give you an example and what is really a thinking strategy. But I would start by reading this quote from Marcus Aurelius. I don't know if you know that Stoic philosopher, but what he says is, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And in reality, in our daily lives, a lot happens. A lot happens in our environment, in our interactions with others, in our relationships, and even in behaviors around us and by us. And all of that is part of our external world. But what is more important is what's happening is in our inner world. And what's happening is in our inner world is defined by our mental, our emotional, and our physiological state. And why is that very important? Is because this could be a point of strength, or this could be a point of weakness. And our internal states could be a resource for us as entrepreneurs, or it could restrict our success as entrepreneurs. And in reality, we think that how we see the world is a very objective truth. But we filter how we see the world through our values, beliefs, and our thinking strategies. And if you look with me at this, I don't know how clear it is, based on these two people, both of them are looking at that number that is written on the floor. One of them see it as 6 and the other one is seeing it as 9. And they both believe that they are equally right because they are seeing it from the angle that they are looking. And this is how we usually, and this is what happens, and a lot of conflict that happens many times is just from seeing things from different angles. I'll give you an example of a conversation that I saw with 2 women entrepreneurs. Both of them, they were on a pitch for VCs. And after the pitch, they were telling me, how did it go? One of the co-founders said it was really bad. I don't think we're going to get it. The VC was not interested. They asked a question that we were not very confident around how we answered. And the other co-founder, who was in exactly the same meeting, said, no, haven't you noticed? It wasn't only 30 minutes. They said 30 minutes, but it took 40 minutes. When they asked about the numbers, they asked about this and this and this. They even gave us a tip about what we could improve. The 2 women were with the same VC and in the same meeting. One of them came with a very negative output of the meeting, while the other one thought it was very positive. And that's when we see how the filters are playing. So the external event happens as the example that I gave, the pitch to the VC. Both women were in that pitch based on the filters, based on their values, based on their beliefs, and based on their thinking strategies. They thought, and their understanding of the situation was very different. The other woman didn't even notice that instead of 30 minutes, they gave them 40 minutes. So they deleted some of the facts, they distorted it. And based on that behavior changed. One of them was very optimistic, and the other one was very pessimistic. And that takes us actually to what is a thinking strategy. And a thinking strategy is, and some of the answers that you gave were very close to what is a thinking strategy. A thinking strategy is a powerful mental process which manages, guides, and directs other mental processes. Sounds complex, but stay with me. Simply, they are patterns of thinkings or of programs or a general approach that we use to guide our thinking about the external world. And to make this very simple, I will give a very common example that I'm sure you all encountered. There are people in life that the ways that they see any situation is by immediately digging into the details. So they are detailed oriented. If they want to understand something, they start by the details. While others are big picture people. they start from the big picture. And if you start giving them many details, they get distorted. And this is regardless if you're talking to them about a business, if they're telling you about a journey or a touristic trip that they did. It's just the way they see the world and they think about things. And they take it with them in all the roles that they play. And there's nothing right or wrong about the thinking strategy. There's nothing right or wrong about thinking about the bigger picture or the details, but it's really about the context. And I'll give you an example, like from a woman that I was brought by the board to coach that woman. She was headhunted because she was in an operational role, and she was a brilliant woman, and she was headhunted to be an executive director in another organization. The woman's strength was in operations. An executive director role is very much about strategy. When I first did the 360 with the board and with the team members, guess what was the feedback of both layers, the board and the team members? Team members said she micromanages. That's a woman that was great with operations, so she was very much detail-oriented. That was her strength. But what happened now is that she was micromanaging that middle, her people. And the board complained that when she reported to them, she was reporting on the details. She couldn't see the vision, the bigger picture. So what was strength when it was in her role as an operational manager, an operations manager, wasn't really the strength as an executive director. And by realizing that she had that default thinking strategy around details and how she's detail-oriented, she was able to start calibrating and balancing when does she need to wear her thinking strategy, her hat of a big picture, and when does she need to have the detailed hat, if you want, or that thinking strategy. And that's why, as we see here, there is a thinking strategy and an opposite thinking strategy. There's no right and wrong. It's just what is the situation and the awareness of what is your default thinking strategy, and is it appropriate for the situation or not? And once you are aware of that, then and know how to balance it and where to balance it, first, you have a choice. You're no more on an autopilot. This is what I'm used to. This is how I think. So I'm always on autopilot. So you have a choice. You can take wiser decisions. You can see what worked for you in a specific situation. What type of thinking strategy what I used in my first business, the first business that I created, or maybe even when I was an employee. What worked for me? How did I analyze? What did I think? How did I think? And how can I bring that same thinking strategy in this situation where I'm stuck? So you model your own success. One very important thing that happens when we understand other thinking strategies is that communication becomes much better. I will give several examples now through the session, but a lot of the conflicts that happen sometimes between the co-founders comes from, or between the key team members, comes from completely different thinking strategies. And that party thinks that this is the right way of thinking about this, and the other one thinks that this is the right way. When you start understanding them, you become more aware of what is happening and more compassionate, and you can use the power of the two different, or the more, like the various different strategies for a wiser decision. Does that make sense?
Definitely. It also speaks a lot about also perspective acceptance in a way, right? Because if you would want to take from other co-founders when you're like more detailed and more about technology or about the product itself, and then another comes and say, hey, but like 5 years from now, where we're going. So it also takes a lot of that, like having that space and for them to take all this feedback and see it.
Definitely. It allows you to listen more curiously about the different perspectives, and usually they are all needed. Let's start with our first thinking strategy, and we're gonna.
If I may interrupt you just here, Nada, because ladies, so in here we are going to have many exercises So it would make a lot of sense for you to maybe bring like a paper and a pen next to you. You're going to have 5, so that towards the end you have the outcome of this workshop. Thank you, Nada.
Thank you, actually, Hanan. Thanks for. So let's start with our first thinking strategy. And this is one probably you're very familiar with. And usually when people think about goals or challenges, they go to a default way of thinking. Either they think about the dream, the goal, they keep going back to it, what they want to achieve, or they think about what they don't want in life. What they don't want to avoid? Oh, I don't want to lose that market share. I don't want to have that problem with the cash flow. I don't want the competition to bring a product before me. I don't want the way my business partner behaves. Rather than, oh, I want a harmonious relationship with my business partner. There's a defined roles and responsibilities. I can see the business going, flourishing in that way. So people usually tend to think either towards a dream or away from a problem. And as I said, there's no right and wrong. These are different ways of thinking. But let's see, how does that look if we are off balance? If you're always thinking how to avoid problems and how to avoid risks and how to avoid challenges or mistakes without focusing on the dream, if you're completely off balance, then people become very perfectionist. They're scared of any mistake that might happen. And we know as entrepreneurs that mistakes need to happen and we need to fail, and we need to fail quick. People can become pessimistic. People would be scared of innovation because we're always avoiding problems. People become very much risk averse. And that's, of course, we're talking about the off balance of that. Let's go to the other side and see the dream part. And if someone is always dreaming, is always thinking of a dream, never goes to the execution, to what is happening, to the possible reality, to the challenges, they might come across as naive. They might stay in the dream state and never be, and you would never see any progress. There's no practicality. There are no tangible results of those dreams. So whenever we are off balance here or there, we have a problem. And here we were talking, Hanan was mentioning how sometimes accepting different perspectives of the things that happens between co-founders. And I was advising 2 co-founders, which happened to be women, an amazing woman, brilliant woman, and they had really a great business idea. But there was a lot of friction between the 2 co-founders. And when we started looking, where did the frictions come from? It came from exactly that point. One of them was a dreamer. She's always a dreamer. Every day there's a new dream, or every day there's a new idea. She lives in that place, of what's going to happen in the coming 5 years, and how can we expand it? Well, and we don't really need to think about the budgets all the time and, those small details. While the other woman was very much focused on the budgets, on the milestones, on how to make this happen, that sometimes she maybe have tried to scope, let's say, the dream, because we need to stay in budget, according to budget, we have deadlines, we have commitments. And that brought a lot of friction between the 2 co-founders until they both sat down. We facilitated that session. And we said, okay, the business, that startup needs this and needs this. And you both need to accept that there is value for those big dreams. And there's also value for the budgets and the deadlines, and that this friction, if it's, or that tension, can be a positive tension if you know how to capitalize on it. And the resolution is that they decided, all right, we're 2 co-founders, equal shares, but one of them is the CEO, and she's the one, the dreamer, who's gonna talk the big strategy, gonna chase the VCs, look for the investments, and of course, she has a say in everything else. The other woman would handle the budgets and the operation, and she would have the last say in those areas. So they kind of split their roles and responsibilities. They always consulted, but if they didn't agree in those areas, that woman took the decisions, and in that area, the other woman took the decisions based on what there were, how comfortable they were with which area. And that is important to realize in yourself and in others.
But don't you think that it's important to challenge each other as well? Like if we would look also at the positive part of it, it's important when you see like co-founders and the team member are actually, you know, like challenging each other, saying like, okay, so what's about this concept? What about that? If we look also, Rana is saying, yeah, it's amazing for them to like be meeting continuously, and that this also could contribute to the business.
Definitely, I fully agree, and that's why what they did, they kept the consultation. So it's the two women would always talk and would always consult. But if they disagreed on a point in a specific area, there was someone who takes the decision at the end. But as you said, this is a very healthy dynamic for the business. And when you talk about it and you have a candid conversation and you give credit to the different opinions and the different ways of thinking, you're enriching the business. So definitely, I always say we think that tension is always negative, but in reality, it's not. If it's handled with trust and with candid conversation, it's very enriching to the business.
Definitely.
And here I will share a tool with you that can help in working around that, especially if you know that your comfort or your thinking strategy is one of those that I'm gonna talk about. And we're seeing Disney, because this tool, if you want, came from Walt Disney, and it was behind the great success of Disney. And I'm not going to go through the whole tool, but I'm going to give you the essence, really. And what Disney said is that we need the dreamer, we need the realist, and we need the critic. The dreamer we already talked about. The realist is the person that says, okay, let's do the storyboards, let's understand the budgets, let's do the timelines. Like, they're realistic. They want to see how does that look in our business context. And then there's the critic. And that's someone who's always looking about what are the risks, what might not work. You know, these are the people that usually don't like, oh my God, I'm dreaming and you're telling me this might work. But in reality, there's the people that identify what are the risks. And what he used to do is they created different rooms in the company. And there was a room where it is the time when the whole team is dreaming. So you cannot critique the ideas. You cannot ask how we're going to do it. We're just dreaming, and that's and the sky is the limit, as long as we're in that physical space. And then we all move into the realist space. It's a physical space. It was a room, and even if you look at the decoration and how they configured it, it suited what they were trying to do. And then they moved to the realist. And that's when everyone, you know, they were chunking down, they were doing the storyboarding, they're thinking about deadline, they're thinking about budgets, qualities. And then there's another place where everyone was thinking about, so what are the risks? What might go wrong? What are the challenges that we might have? And that's something, and I think that goes back to also when Hanan and someone else also in the chat said that this could be very enriching. But using that is a way of capitalizing on all those thinking strategies intentionally. You are the dreamer, you are the realist, you are the critic, and taking yourself a bit and your team out of their default thinking strategy, so that you have that collective intelligence that you need, especially as an entrepreneur. I personally do that even for myself and for my work. My office, where I'm talking to you from now, is the place of the realist. And it's all right, I can use it sometimes for the critic. I have a completely different space that I use when I want to be the dreamer. And the minute I step into that space, I become the dreamer. It's just, you keep doing it and until your brain switches from one thinking strategy to the other by changing the physical location.
I think, Nada, we could also address this. I feel guilty of being a dreamer. I'm the one writing new proposals for new ideas from somewhere. I think what we are talking about is that challenging each other is important, and having different perspectives is important, but also like, where's the line, you know? Because we cannot be dreaming, like you mentioned, all the way, and we cannot also be focused only on what we have in hand. Otherwise, this organization is not moving forward.
Yes, what was it about feeling guilty? Sorry, Hanan, I didn't get the first.
She is the dreamer, the all-time dreamer, the one with new ideas, the one with new proposals.
I don't think it's something to be proud of and not to be guilty about. You know that by default, that's your thinking strategy. Your challenge in your growth as a leader, as an entrepreneur, is to know when you need to become the realist and when you need to become the critic. And that's where we're talking the balance. There's no formula. It's not a mathematical formula where we say, oh, you have to spend 50% or 20%. And if you know yourself, and you will see that in a bit with a case study, like an example that I'm giving, if you know that, you know what, it's so hard to me to be the realist, then when you look at your team and when you look at your co-founders or business partners, bring on board someone that is a realist. If you're both dreamers, nothing is gonna happen. But if there is no one who dreams, there's no innovation, there's no creativity, there's no thinking out of the box. So again, this is not about right and wrong. This is not about guilt. On the contrary, it's a gift to be a dreamer. It's a gift to be a critic. Imagine, who do you want to do your quality assurance? You want a critic, you know, who sees what is not working. So celebrate that and find ways and tools to encourage yourself, your team, to wear the different hats. I hope there's no more guilt. Please tell me there's no more guilt, Hanan.
Well, all feelings in there should be moving us forward, regardless.
That's true. And let me give you an example. I don't know if you are familiar with Azza Fahmi. And Azza Fahmi is a great entrepreneur, and she's a jewelry maker. And if you look at, if you can see the photo, and if you see the necklace that is she's wearing, that's one of her designs. And I watched several interviews to Azza Fahmi, and now I think she's in her 70s or something, and she says, till this day, I have dreams that never end. And it's very interesting that she says, at this moment in life, I just want to be the artist. I want to be crazy with my dreams. I don't want to even think of how can I make them happen. So Azza Fahmi, at her heart, she's a dreamer. When she started 50 years back and she started making jewelry, it was a place that was male dominant. And the story how she arrived to jewelry making, she had a job at the government, and I think she did fine arts, and she knew she loved arts. She tried doing ceramics. She was horrible. As she said, she tried painting pictures for kids' books. She was horrible. And then one day she goes to a book exhibition, and she sees that book in German. She cannot read German. And she sees jewelry from the medieval ages. And there's a donkey, I think, on one of those jewelry. And she just feels it. And she says, at that time, I felt it in my heart that this is what I want to do. She doesn't know how to do it. It's no clue. But she felt it. And she said, especially during her beginnings, I knew I'm going to go places with this just because I loved it. And from there on, what Azza Fahmi does, she goes after her daily job and asks, I think it was Usta Ramadan or someone, asked him she's willing to pay money if he allows her to come and become an apprentice. And she sits next to the men trying to learn how to do to start doing the jewelry. And after 50 years, she's an international brand now. She has a company that has stores all over the world. You see Hollywood stars wearing some of the jewelry of Azza Fahmi. And while she talks about herself as a dreamer, and that now at her age and with the company established, she just wants to go crazy with her dreams. And she says, I'm a very pragmatic woman. And in reality, the way she was able to do all of this is through her hard work, through her pivoting, through her research, through her study. So yes, she was a dreamer, but when she needed to bring the realist, she was able to bring the realist. And what she did, is because she knows at her heart she's a dreamer, and she talks about how she hated finance and numbers. And one of her two daughters has a good sense for business and had a good sense for numbers. So what she did is that she brought in her daughter and told her, you take over the business. I just want to dream and to design and the daughter is leading when it comes to the business strategy. I think she's even the CEO of the company. So that's an example of a dreamer who knew when to be a realist and achieved great success. And I think that answers what was one of the ladies' feeling about the guilt. Hanan, you had something.
Also Ernest was talking about delegation, and this is also a great example of when we need to delegate matters that not our strength. For example, I also think that what Azza did was also a great shed the light on how we embrace failure, which is amazing, and also having the strength, the passion to experience more, because also one of the questions that they always ask about how we find what we lead in, what we are more strong in. And she experienced, she went for like, okay, fine, I'm not good at that, okay, I have it, but let's see what else is there.
Definitely. And she talks about it today, and I don't think we can find our passion without experimenting. And towards like one of the thinking strategy will be when do we know how to let go, and then when to stay and keep trying. So also we will talk about that, but definitely and really I would go ahead, Hannah, sorry.
I find it an interesting question asking how can we validate our dream. For me, as someone who works with entrepreneurs all the time, I believe validate is an important word, but validate and dream, that's your area, Nada.
Well, I'm going to talk a bit about that when we talk about when to let go versus how to keep the resilience. But for now, and for this thinking strategy, if you feel that you are the dreamer, you're the entrepreneur, and you kind of feel, am I being realistic? Look at your co-founders, your partners, your mentors, your advisors, and listen with an open mind and with an open heart to the different perspectives that you are hearing, so that you can judge if this dream will be going somewhere or not. And we're going to do that will be the last part of the session, and we're going to talk a bit more about that. So if it's all right if I just leave it till the end.
No worries, Nada, no worries, we can look at it next.
Thank you. No, but I really appreciate that, and they're jumping ahead of us, so that's exciting.
We have a strong audience.
We do, I know. And now for our strong audience, it's time to think a bit about your own business. So I want you to look at one challenge, one dream in your entrepreneurial journey, into your business. It could be anything you choose. And first, before that, actually, now that you heard about the different thinking strategies, we talked about the dreamer, we talked about the realist, and we talked about the critic. Would you share in chat, what do you think is your default thinking strategy? I'm sure you have access to all of them and use them all, but what would be your default one?
A dreamer. Okay, we have a lot of visionary here. I would say I'm a mix. Can we have can we have a
Yes.
hybrid? Can I be like half critic, half visionary, realistic critic?
Definitely.
Okay, Sumaya agrees with me. She's a hybrid as well. Okay, dreamer and critic. Dreamer, but more realistic and critic now. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Critic overdose.
Critic overdose, we have to work with it.
So we have all the types, and we have all the type of hybrids as well. Dreamer and realistic.
Yeah, yeah. And again, as we said, there's no right and wrong. And usually entrepreneurs, many of them tend to be a bit more of the dreamers. And literally, there's no right and wrong. But it's good to know what is yours, so that you know where's your strength, and maybe where are your weak points, areas. And now that you know what is your default thinking strategy, I want you to look at one area in your business, in your startup, maybe in your relationship with your co-founders or your team, where you think that you would benefit from a different strategy. So, for example, if you're a dreamer, think of an area where being a critic might help, or an area where being a realist might help. It's not your natural tendency. Or if you're a hybrid of a dreamer and a critic, an area where a realist.
Okay, you know, Nada, I'm going to do the exercise with our audience today. So I'm going to write on my paper first. I'm going to put dreamer, and I'm going to put critic. And now we are going to add one
one area where you think you would benefit from a different thinking strategy.
So like I'm a dreamer, but I would wish to be more realistic.
Yes, in a specific area in your business or work or.
Okay, so you know, like having this, because towards the end of this workshop, we want you to have an outcome, and that's why I said at the beginning, you know, like bring a paper and a pen, or like on your computer, phone, whatever it is, so that you know to look at where we started this workshop, and like as we go with it, how our things are going to evolve. Okay.
And now, commit to one action, one step, one action that would reflect that commitment. If I take Hanan as an example, now it's your fault. You told us you're going to do this. So you said you're a dreamer and a critic, right? All right. So you identified one area where you can benefit of being a realist. And I'm not going to ask what the area, but that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I want to be realistic more.
Be more realistic. Commit to one action.
Okay.
That can translate you being more realistic in that area.
So maybe I would think more validation would come if I would use the word from our audience. More market research would come. More maybe asking my mentors what they think, why this is my weakness. Maybe I can like have a call with you, and you can like show, is that the type of things?
Definitely.
Okay.
Each single example you gave is an action step of where you are using a different strategy. You're choosing to do a market research. You're choosing to bring a realist. And for all the audience, write down on the paper or on your digital pad, what is that action step that you're gonna do?
Or maybe write it in the chat so that you know I can't cheat. Copy some of yours. What's the one action you're going to commit to? Okay, I'm going to commit to do more market research. That's mine. Market research. Okay, I'm playing the devil's advocate. Oh, that's important. Always you need that devil critic, and you always need someone to challenge you, because also when you're pitching, when you're going to the market, They're not going to sit and say, oh, wow, you did 1, 2, 3, and we like it. They're going to expect you to deliver.
Definitely.
Benchmarking before starting a business. Live event. Okay, networking is very important.
Yes.
This is the area that I should be working on, except I do not have the answer to everything, except there's a problem, and then brainstorm for a solution. Build a sense of curiosity. I like this one. More painting.
Beautiful.
Amazing. So maybe let's how about we take one of the audience rather than myself, so that I'm not on under the light. Do we have a volunteer? We want one of the audience to take you as an example, and we're going to run this on you. Can you raise your hand? Do you have a volunteer? Okay. Samira. Okay, all right, Samira. Unmute yourself and say what's your what do you identify as, and what's your goal? Samira.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. By the way, it's a brilliant insights that you all are providing. So congratulations, first of all. And, I see myself as being more action oriented in terms of, dreaming first. So it starts with the dreaming of a bigger plan, but at the same time, implementing as much as possible and putting it into practice. Keeping it customer focused at the same time is, another important area which is important, but a realistic dreamer
so your commitment
is a combination.
The one commitment is going to be?
My aim I'm currently working on a project on sustainability here in the Middle East region. And today, after, in the course of your workshop, I'm actually trying to put that plan in place, map it with all the stakeholders and hopefully announce it to you all soon in a couple of weeks. And that is my commitment here today at your workshop.
So you're more of a realistic.
Yes, I dreamt of it, to be open, to be honest with you. I dreamt of it first, but now I want to put that into practice through a realistic execution.
Thank you for your participation, Samira.
Thank you so much.
That's a great example. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. And I would love to hear from everyone, but I will move to the next strategy. So if that's all right with Hanan. Hanan, you're the boss.
Yeah, definitely. Please, let's move forward. Go ahead.
All right. So now let's talk about another very important thinking strategy, which has to do with performance and relationships. And I'm sure we've all been through this, and every day we do. And again, at the two ends of this, we have people that are relationship focused. So relationships come first. They want harmony. Their leadership style is very much people focused. And research shows that women in general are more people oriented, and they care for the connections more. It could be because of the traditional roles that women played. I'm not going to go into that, but research shows that women are more people oriented versus people that are performance focused. Performance comes first, achievement is a priority, and sometimes it becomes a bit of more of a transactional leadership style. And again, both relationship and performance are very important. Let's see what is an off balance of if someone is purely performance focused, they don't care about the relationships. So what happens is that people would feel they are bullied. You would see that there's no sense of ownership. the team doesn't care, okay, this is what you want, this is what we're gonna do. People will not take initiatives, they don't care, they don't feel safe to experiment, they don't feel safe to give opinion, and the organization usually doesn't learn much. And again, I'm saying if we're off balance, the only thing that matters is the numbers. If you don't achieve the numbers, no, we don't care what happened in the market. We're just firing everyone. Versus, let's go to the people who are people-oriented. And if they are off balance, what might happen? And that's when you see lack of accountability. Everything matters. You know, we don't want anyone to be upset. Unclear agreements, you know, I don't want to upset my co-founder, so we really didn't talk about the shares and this and who's doing that, and what happens is that eventually all those unspoken agreements and unclarified becomes a lot of resentment, and also there's no performance because there is no accountability. So the off balance of both is also harmful for the business and harmful for you and harmful for the startup. And if you have a startup or a business, then the performance of that business is very important. But if you don't have the ownership of your people, then what do you have? So what do you do about that? And how do you find your balance? And here, I'm gonna show you, oops, all right. And here, what you can do is you start asking yourself first, and if you want, you can share in the chat, where do you think when you come to your default thinking strategy? Are you more people-oriented or are you more performance-oriented? Let me go back a bit here so that you can see this. And I'm counting on you, Hanan.
If I would start as the first example, I would say I'm a hybrid again, but I always believe that people are very important. I always say this, I think people are bored from the amount of times I repeated it. People is the main pillar of any startup. Okay, more people than relationship. Okay, I'm a people, my co-founder is performance oriented.
That's a great
balance. People oriented, help us to achieve the results. Relationship focused, and I can see from this chart of balance. Okay. I think I combine both people and more than performance, but we have also a good balance. Okay, that's a good indicator.
That's a good indicator. I've seen more women that are, if they are off balance, that they kind of willing to compromise the performance, or they are willing to compromise just not to upset people. I saw that a lot with new managers who tend to be a bit pleasing to their teams because they want to be like, they don't want anyone to be upset. And they think that pampering the team to the extent that there's no accountability might give a team spirit, but in reality, it fires back. And that's why, again, we need to see what is the balance. And let me give you a couple of questions that can help in calibrating, because again, there's no right and wrong. Performance is very important, and people are very important, and it doesn't need to be one at the expense of the other. So if you believe you tend to be more of pleasing or avoiding confrontation or difficult conversations, whether it's with your team, with your investors, with your board, with your business partners, ask yourself just to know if you're being tactically, I am maintaining harmony, or if I'm being a pleaser and if I'm avoiding conflict. So ask yourself, am I acting out of fear of losing the love, the approval, the acceptance of another, whether that's a business partner, was that my team, whether what? So that's the first question. If you feel that you are much more of a people person. And at the same time, and the second question, you can always ask yourself to bring more balance. If you feel I'm off balance, ask yourself, Am I serving the bigger system? Which means, am I serving the business? You are the custodian of the business, of the larger system. And custodian means the one who looks after something, the one who protects something. So look at yourself and think, what happens? I might have that difficult conversation with that business partner or with that team member, and they might be upset, and they might think that I'm a tough manager. But what am I protecting really? Is this for the benefit of the business or not? And I see Hanan. Go ahead, Hanan.
No, I'm just, I just want to highlight that this is also us being analytical, because also like having the healthy balance is definitely an option.
Definitely. And no one can tell you what's the right balance for you. And also, it's as I started saying, it's very situational. If you believe that you tend to push for achievements at the expense of relationships, ask yourself, am I creating harmony? Am I creating ownership, co-ownership? What am I creating in that business environment or in that relationship? And again, ask yourself, does taking or not taking that action or that decision serve the business, serve the bigger picture, the larger system? And if you notice, most of what we talk about is leadership is about awareness. And it's not just awareness about the outer environment, it's about awareness about yourself and questioning yourself. And we will come to the group exercise. This is still not the group exercise. But I will give an example of, you will laugh if you see what I'm trying to do. My screen, okay, I'm doing this way, I'm only seeing Hanan. And I'm going to give an example about Christine Lagarde. And I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's not an entrepreneur, but she's a French lawyer. She's a politician. She was the first woman to serve as France's finance minister, as the managing director of IMF, and as the president of the European Central Bank. She was appointed 2019, and she's still the president. And in her early beginnings, because she was a lawyer, she joined the international law firm Baker and McKenzie, and she was made a partner and became the first female chairperson of the executive committee. She has a great track record, and if you look at her, you can see. A very approachable, very elegant French woman, and she talks a lot about love. And when a student, and I was watching one of her interviews, a student asked her about what helped her to thrive in her career, she said it was love. And she always says, I'm very inclusive in my leadership style, and people matter a lot. And she used to be a synchronized swimmer when she was a teenager, which is a style of swimming where the whole team members need to synchronize together, which meant that teamwork is very important. So with all of that, people-oriented, talking about love, yet she's very well known that she can take tough decisions, and that she would never hesitate to fire low performers. She wouldn't compromise the performance, and even in her decisions when it comes to not only of team members, how she deals with countries now as the president of the European Central Bank, she was tough in some of the decisions, even on France, and upset many people. And again, I'm not arguing whether the decisions were right or was wrong, but what I'm saying, that's a leader that knows when to use the love and the people-oriented and the harmony, and that knows when to say no and when to fire. And that's the kind of balance that you would want to bring in. And I'm gonna go back to you and to your business and to your entrepreneurial journey. And I would say, look at one problematic relationship that you have in your business, a place where you are not sure if you are prioritizing the performance or the people, or if you're sacrificing the performance of the business because of for the sake of the relation, to maintain the relationship, or maybe the opposite. You're bullying people to get results at the expense of relationships. And find one problematic area. And you have already identified your thinking strategy. And I saw that many of the people thought that they are a people's person. And think of you would benefit of using the opposite. If you need, and again, we're not talking about becoming off balance, but if you're a people person, think if it can help to go a bit more towards performance. And if it's the opposite, do the opposite.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in.
Yes.
And please, ladies, add your answers in the chat box. So again, I can cheat. I would say I've been receiving feedback that maybe sometimes you don't need to be very aggressive in your response, but more assertive. And that's one of the things that I get to learn being an executive, how to transform from being to become more assertive.
Yes, is this something you're reading from chat, Hanan? Or
that's my example. So the ladies here, they're saying, can this relationship be with ourselves? I know where my weakness lie. It's not taking action for my own business, while at my job, I'm known to be a tough, but just a leader. Okay. So the relationship with, so that to add more skills to herself in this place as being leader. Taking more actions, maybe probably being more assertive in the language. What do you think, Nada?
The one I'm trying to read it, Lahida. Can this relationship should be with ourselves, right? I know where my weakness is. It's not taking action for my own business. While at my job, I'm known to be a tough, but just leader. So you know that in your job, and it seems this is a woman who is an entrepreneur and also have a job. So she says, I'm a tough, but also I'm just. Do you feel that the relationship with yourself are you pushing yourself too hard, and you're you're pushing yourself for performance more at the expense of yourself as a woman, and as a I think that's what I'm kind of understanding, that
it's about not being able to take decision or take action. And I think maybe again they're jumping ahead, because you'll be talking about decision making next, right?
We will, yes. If it's about decision making, we're going to talk about decision making best. Someone, I'm just checking, I'm reading the chart, and May says, I think people opinions of how they can see us better. We can judge ourselves. Yes and no, May. I think if you reflect, we know. Deep inside, we know. But also, I agree, sometimes having an objective mirror that can, and I say objective, like which with your best interest at their heart, yes, they would mirror your blind spots. You might think that, I don't know, you're fully around looking for harmony and you care for the people, and then someone comes and says, well, you don't realize, you do bully us every now and then. And again, it's a balance. So is there anything else in the chat?
How do you balance family member support, which was crucial when you started, with bringing in new expertise? Okay, this is an important one.
How do you balance family member support, which was crucial when you started, with bringing in new expertise? By thinking of the bigger system, by even talking to the family members that this is not about me and you, but this is about the business and about growing the business, and bringing new people does not mean sacrificing them, and that the best person for the job and for the business, the growth of the business, should be chosen.
This actually falls under good governance as well, and it's one of the like main pillars that when companies they start small and then they go big, this is one of the biggest issues they face.
And we see it a lot in many of the family businesses or in couples that create business together, where they compromise the business for the sake of the people, and eventually the business disappears.
We also have another problem area, relationship with my team, sacrificing performance for keeping a fun-friendly environment. Oh, okay. Well, having fun at the workplace or at the startup is important, but definitely not to have it affecting the performance.
Yes, you need to know when to say no, because when you're setting even the team for for losing accountability, and once the culture within that startup or a business, the accountability is loose, it becomes very difficult to change that culture for more accountability. And you take baby steps, you know, start saying no, start emailing if you find it difficult to do it face to face, to give a warning about bad behavior or about lack of accountability. Hanan, do you want to take us last one and we move to the second next section?
Yes, because we need to be mindful of the time. There are two, one of them too soft when it comes to family issues, opposite to staff, and maintaining the good relationship is very important. I avoid dispute.
I would ask you, what is more important? If that business ends up because you're soft, you're a kind heart, and that's a blessing. But if the business ends up going bankrupt or underperforming, are you doing long-term? Don't think of the short term, but are you doing long-term good for that business, for the families of those people, if the business fails or if it doesn't perform? Think of the bigger system. You're a custodian of the bigger system.
All right. We need to move forward because we have less than 25 minutes.
So let's talk about decision making. And I noticed when I wore my eyeglasses that I can see much better. I wasn't seeing really well. So let's talk about decision making. And decision making, like, it's a continuation somehow. And that's why we started hearing questions about decision making, about a bit about the people and performance. So there is the people like where they are more directional. So I take the decisions, the decision is centralized, it's top down, and that makes it very quick. And there's the people the leaders that tend to, they prefer group decision making, shared authority, long negotiation. We want everyone on board. Everyone needs to believe in what we are doing. And again, there's a balance. If we see the off balance of being pure directional, I take all the decisions, it becomes a one-woman show. You won't have a buy-in from others. People won't take initiative. You're not benefiting from the collective intelligence and all the brains that you have. And again, I'm talking about the off balance. If we look about the consensus and the off balance, if we see the consensus, we would see that, as we were saying, no clear accountability. We don't know who took the decision. You know, decisions take forever. No one is willing to take risk, and there's compromised authority. And why we focus on decision making? Because some of the decisions could be killers for the business. So how do we take decisions is very important. And let me just move to the next slide. Yeah, and some tools to help you think about. Let me ask you first here. Who's consensus? Who tends to be more consensus, and who tends to be more directional? And you can share that very quickly on the chat. We're just gonna read a couple of them so we can stay in time on the time. And consensus mean like a lot of consultation. We have to all be on board. If one person don't answer, we're waiting. Directional, I take the decision. I know what's right for the business. Let's move on.
So we have 2 directional, 1 consensus, mixture. we have a hybrid, listen to everyone, but decide myself. Don't you think having in some of, I would say at a startup, having a board of directors would not be the case, but like having a board of advisors could bring good direction in here, strategy-wise?
Definitely. When you need to consult, a board of advisors is definitely a good place where they can give you new insights for decision making. And one way of asking yourself, because again, when you take this, when you consult, when you ask people for their opinions and you involve them in decision making, you build accountability, you build co-ownership, but at the same time, there are long negotiations, and sometimes decisions can't wait that long. So how do we decide so that we can find the right balance in that specific situation? Ask yourself, what's the context? Is this about the vision? Is this strategic? Is this operational? Sometimes you might decide that, you know what, I'm going to go through the lengthy process because there's a huge change that is happening and I want everyone on board. So I will keep the consultation till somehow I get some consensus. Sometimes it might be a huge risk and it's very strategic and you cannot delay the decision. And you would say, you know what, we're in a state of crisis. I need to take a decision and we need to move on. So ask yourself, what is the context of that? How much time do I have to take the decision? If there is a fire in the building, do you really consult and do you really ask for consensus or do you really act? So what's the time frame? What's the level of confidence of the direction? How much do you know where are you heading? Do you have the knowledge, or are other people, even if you're the boss, if there are other people that are more knowledgeable? And what is the cost of not moving with that decision or with that direction? So again, you ask yourself all those questions and see where is the place where you would want to make sure there is consensus, and where is the place that you would take the decision and move on. And I'm going to give an example of Indra Nui. And Indra Nui is an Indian American business executive. She's the former chairperson and chief executive officer of PepsiCo. She's one of corporate America's few female CEOs at her time. And she has consistently ranked among the world's 100 most powerful women. And with Indra Nui, she was well known how much she consults with everyone. But and an example is that when she needed to take a decision of changing the IT system of Pepsi, and it was a $1 billion decision. What Indra Nui did is that she consulted, she asked, she read 10 textbooks, she had a professor to answer all her questions. And when she made up her mind and she was convinced that this was the right decision, she just implemented. Though it was opposed by so many people and they thought it was a waste of money. So that is one example of, and I think I saw one of the ladies in the chat that she was saying, I usually consult, but then I take the decision. So in such a huge decision, that's what Indra Nui did. So know when it's a possibility to do a similar approach.
But you also know risk sometimes is important, understanding what lays on a stake in there. Sometimes risk could contribute to innovation. Sometimes we need to take it. Understanding our mitigation or what's our pros and cons, where this will take us and where the other way will take us, could also bring a lot of sense for the decision making in here.
And that's why it's important to consult and important to take different opinions and sometimes important to have that consensus. But sometimes you know you're the custodian of the business and you know that strategic direction is important. So you take the decision and with that you take the liability. And I'm going to invite everyone to look at your decision-making process, and you already identified your default thinking strategy, and think of an area where maybe you are using too much consensus, or maybe you are not consulting enough. think of one area of one of those areas, and again, commit to one action step where you think you will bring more balance. And we have Hanan to give us an example.
Decision making. I think the last one that you highlighted is very important. I think it's a lot usually when there is a decision that in your heart for your startup, you know, this is the one you want to take and move forward with. And another that sometimes people who, again, I would go back to like being more realistic, they'd be like, oh no, but you know, we could lose 1, 2, 3, there is money, there's this. I do believe that risk sometimes is important, and that's why I think, again, research, consulting, seeing your advisors, seeking more information, and then taking the decision, because yeah, sometimes we do need to take risk.
We do.
I'm gonna add that one for me. Take more risks.
All right.
Studied risk.
Studied risks. And maybe like you would find someone we're talking decision that kind of help you to take more risks, like that they could. And I'm going to apologize for not taking things in the chat now, but I would want to move to the next strategy, if that's all right, Hanan.
Of course, please move forward.
Yep.
And let's look about managing your environment. And are you inward looking or outward looking? And very simply, what is inward looking versus outward? Inward looking are people that when they assess, when they dream, when they take their decisions, they are looking within their organizations. They are very focused about their own internal capabilities. They are very focused on the operation, on the product innovation. All their decisions are internally driven. While the outward looking is there are people that are more focused on the market trends, on the industry, on what is changing, on the external forces, on building alliances, on even maybe business development. So when they think about the business, you see them more outward looking. They are the people that are always on the road. And then there are the people that just love the innovation and the product. And many times when people come from more of a technical background, and when I say technical, it doesn't have to be IT, any kind of technical background, we would find them a bit more inward looking. Again, there's no right and wrong. Inward looking, if it's off balance, this can take you to a place where you don't know what's happening with competition. You don't know what's happening with market trends. You can lose opportunities. You don't see that customer needs are shifting. You don't have strong alliances because you're just focused internally and sitting in that cave. While outward looking, if it's off balance, then there's no clear vision. Every market trend, we shift with it. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Every other day, there's a new business idea. None of them picks up because that change. And every day we pivot, and lack of focus. And there's because there's not enough time to create the processes and the system, you find weak internal processes and systems, and they are driven by competition. So what's the balance between inward looking and outward looking? And here the balance is really key, especially if you are a founder. If you have different roles and there's already someone that is in charge, like you have your operations manager who's inward, and there's someone that is studying the market, and there's a CEO, then you probably have you probably cover both the inward and the outward through the different roles. But what if you're still starting? How do you find your balance? And how we go and you ask yourself, so to see if you are balanced in that, what is the percentage of time that I'm dedicating to looking inward versus looking outward? I'm spending all my time product development. Do I really see what's the competition? Or am I just jumping from one competition to the other and ignoring what's happening internally? How does your internal system look like? What do I know about my industry? What do I know about my competition? How good I am about building alliances? And I would just say very quickly, if you could share in the chat, what is your default strategy? Are you more of an inward looking, or are you more of an outward looking? And a key indicator would be the percentage of time that you spend on inward things versus the percentage of time that you're spending on outward competition, market trends, alliances.
Do you think also that maybe when we do all of these exercises, because decision making is something that we do all the time in our startups, having these kind of timetables or roadmaps so that we learn? So the next time I would look, okay, so my last experience, or usually this is what I tend to do. What do you think?
In order to be able to learn from your own
having lessons learned, having my own best practice.
Oh, definitely. I think especially in an entrepreneurial journey, because many times it's a road that less traveled. Like you're creating something new. You have that new idea. Learning from your own. I'm going to call them mistakes, though I don't believe they are mistakes. But learning from your own journey is very important. Is there anything in the chat, Hanan, that you would want to?
They're agreeing with you on having the balance. They're agreeing also, it depends where you are in the journey, definitely. Where's the team's strength, opposite? They're all agreeing with you on that same thing. Be aware of our thinking strategy without judging it one more time, talking about perspective acceptance. I think we need to move forward again because we only have 8 minutes to wrap up.
Yep. And let me, you know what I will do, because the last one is very important. This is an example about Indra Nui that you can check. And again, the same consultation that we talk about and how she took a bold decision based on her belief that more consumers will be more need more healthier food choices. So she took the decision outward looking against everything that people in the company believed in, and she was right. Because she understood the customers. And here I'm going to talk about managing adversity. And this is really one thing that at some point in time, especially as entrepreneurs, we go through this, where we don't know whether it's time to let go of the business itself, let go of that business relationship, or we should still persist, and commit to the vision and just pivot. And
allow me to interrupt you, because we need to define adversity for our audience, please.
Yes, it is when nothing is working. When you reach the place where you feel that all the external circumstances are against you and nothing is working, and you're not sure if it is time to let go. The business is at threat. Does that make it clear, Hanan?
Yes, thank you.
All right. And again, you can be, and that's one of the most difficult decisions. I have to say, in my long journey, that's one that I didn't. I was always off balance when it comes to letting go. It was always very difficult for me to let go. And it's very interesting that many of the entrepreneurs, their strength is their grit, their ability to persevere regardless of the hardship, regardless of what it happens. But sometimes your advisors tell you, be careful, this is not working. Everyone tells you this is not working. The numbers tell you this is not working. And you need to ask yourself if it's time to let go. And of course, all the stories that we hear about all those entrepreneurs that heard the no, and after 100 no's, they became a unicorn, kind of makes us also doubt ourselves. Is it time to let go or not? And I'll give you 3 steps. And really, that's something that I learned the hard way, because I had a problem of letting go. And the first thing is that know your data and have clear KPIs for performance. So always measure your progress and have clear targets for your performance, so that it's not just the emotion and the passion, but you know where you are. Are you missing your targets? And the targets are based on where you are in your entrepreneurial journey. Is it a business where you can talk about sales? You're still at a pitch, at a startup level. So know your numbers, know your KPIs. The second thing is seek the advice of a mentor and listen. And in that specific time, when I were talking about seeking advice of a mentor, when you don't know if you should go, keep going with your business or maybe let go of it, find a mentor or an advisor that knows your industry, that knows what are the circumstances, that can read the numbers, and listen, even if it's against all what your heart wants. And then the last thing is activate your intuition. Trust your intuition. But third, trust your intuition. I hear many entrepreneurs that they don't do the numbers, they don't want to listen to the advisors, but they know deep inside that this business is going to one day become a unicorn, or like that it's going to flourish. You do the first step, you do the second step, and the third, where you activate your intuition. And we don't talk a lot about intuition in our business environment, but in reality, deep inside each one of us, there is a knowing that is beyond the knowing, and there is a wisdom that you can feel it deep in your body. And I don't have time to take you through that exercise, but all that I would say, to reach that voice, just go and center yourself. Step away from all the problems that are around you and see what you feel in your mind, in your heart, and in your gut feeling. And take that as part of the data that you're analyzing with all the other data. And based on that, you'll take your decision. I don't know, Hanan, if you want to add something there. I know we still have 3 minutes.
Actually, I read about that specifically, and apparently it's intuition, as people would say, like gut feeling. It is a gut feeling, but actually it's how amazing our brains are working, that this is an analysis of your experiences, of everything combined. It's not coming out of nowhere. Your intuition and gut feeling is not coming out of nowhere. So definitely, I agree with you 100%.
And it's the ancient wisdom, you know how when you step into a meeting or wherever, or you meet someone, and the minute you meet them, you feel something is wrong. There's no data still, there's nothing. But
but your brain is reading the room, feeling the room, reading body language, bringing all these data together.
Yeah. And now they are saying we have 3 nervous systems. There's the emotional, and there's the cognitive, and we have that today we're calling the gut feeling. So I would say, but don't take it as an excuse. Do the steps, and then take your decision. And I'm gonna skip this, Hanan. So do you want to run the poll?
Okay, so this is our final poll. So in here, we are going to ask you if you could please share with us, after this amazing session, amazing Nada, thank you very much. How knowledgeable are you now about your leadership style, thinking strategies, decision making? Okay, we're getting very good. Okay, very good, amazing. More than 40, okay, 40%. We're going between good and very good. Thank you. I'm going to leave the poll in here. Thank you very much, Nada. This has been an amazing session, very informative, based on a lot of facts. Thank you for sharing all of these inspiring women as well, showing us the way as well, and sharing their wisdom and their knowledge with us. Thank you very much for you for being here. Thank you for you and women, and for Nama Women Advancement for making this possible. Thank you all in the audience for attending here today with us, for all the engagement within the chat, the questions, the feedback was very engaging, was very nice.
Nada, thank you so much, Hanan. It was really, I learned a lot from this session. So informative, so enlightening. Please, I would ask Nada also to share her contact details if you'd like to.
Thank you very much, Hiba. Really, I appreciate that. I appreciate the great work that you're doing, and thanks for the opportunity to connect to that great audience. I love their engagement. And this is my email in case anyone would like to get in touch, and my LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nada. Thank you to my colleagues, Hiba and Maya, for being here. We come to the end of our session, and we look forward for seeing you again in part of our master classes. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.